Hi guys, it's Lauren from Cake and It's Special. So a while ago I made Winnie Sanderson from Hocus Pocus into a doll cake. So this week I've decided to make her sister, Sarah. So here we go. I have made 3 6-inch vanilla cakes that I have dyed purple. I'm going to stack them up with vanilla buttercream in between each layer. I wasn't sure if I was going to use the lid off the top layer, but I decided I didn't need it. I make sure to scrape away any excess buttercream from around the side of the cake, but I save it for the crumb coat. When it comes to carving, I like to have a big carving knife as well as a small carving knife nearby. I find them both useful. And what I'm going for is a skirt shape. And when I'm happy, I can add the crumb coat and pop the cake in the fridge. I like to put my crumb coat buttercream in a separate bowl. That way I don't have to put my crummy spatula back into my nice clean bowl of buttercream. When my cake is nice and chilled, I add the second layer of buttercream. I just add a nice thick layer and then use my flexible smoother to smooth it all out. Time for fondant. Sarah has a few different colours on her dress. I'm starting with red. I roll it out nice and thin and then use my knife to cut a triangle and stick this to the centre of the skirt. Now I need to score in some creases. I use a few different tools for this. That way I can get different effects. Now I take more fondant that I have dyed a khaki colour and add a strip to either side of that red, and once again score in the creases. When that is done, I cover the rest of the skirt in a purple fondant. I roll a long piece and wrap it around the cake. Then using a sharp knife, I cut away the fondant at either side of the khaki fondant. And then for the last time, score in them lines. Sarah's skirt also has a purple frill at the top. So I just roll out another strip and sort of lap it over at one edge to make it frill, and then stick that in place with water. I just have a play with how it sits until I'm happy. Next I add a hollow cake dowel through the centre of the skirt, and then in the centre of that I add a wooden skewer. To make sure that that doesn't move around, I'm going to push fondant in to keep it still. Moving on to her body, I've dyed some Cericino modelling paste with some Sugar Flares Skin Tone Food Gel. And I'm going to roll it in my hands and then pull out a neck. I flatten a chest and pull in the waist. And then when I cut it down to size, I can work on Sarah's boobs. Then I'm going to use a sculpting tool to push in that collarbone, and then I can add the torso to the cake. I like to use a skewer to make the hole through the torso while I can hold on to it. If I try and put it straight onto the skewer that's stuck into the cake, I won't have as much control, and there's a good chance that I will either stretch it or move the modelling paste. There's a tiny gap between the torso and the skirt, so I'm just going to fill that in with a little extra modelling paste. The top of her dress is almost a dirty pink colour. I just cut out a strip with a point in the centre and then wrap that around her body. I take a sculpting tool to draw in the seams. Now I need to start Sarah's mop. So I take another skewer and wrap it in some brown fondant. I cut away the excess and roll it until it's nice and smooth, and then I can leave that aside to dry for a while I work on her head. So more modelling paste, I roll it into an egg shape. Then gently run my finger across the centre, then using my fingers and a sculpting tool, I can work in her nose. Sarah has a bit of a longer face and a longer nose, so I wanted to make sure I got that. I wanted her expression to be like a shocked, posy expression, so I use a small balling tool to push in her mouth and then try and work in them lips. I use my balling tool to push in her eye sockets, which I then fill with some white. So I paint inside the mouth with some black. Then for her makeup, I got some gel colours that I will add a tiny bit of clear food grade alcohol to make into a paint. I have red for her lips. I switched back to rainbow dust just to add some eyeshadow. Black for the eyeliner and mascara. I'm just referring to a lot of photos. I switched to blue rainbow dust for her eyes. I find that sometimes I like to use the dry dust, and then sometimes if I want it to be more of a heavy colour, I prefer to use the gels. And then brown for her eyebrows. And then I can stick her head in place. The next thing I need to do is her arms. So I roll out a long cord of my modelling paste and then I work in the wrist. And then I can flatten out her hand. I work in an elbow before cutting the arm down. Then for the fingers, I cut out a triangle at the side to leave a thumb and then cut the rest of the fingers out. I want both arms positioned differently. So I just need to make sure that the thumbs are on the right side of the hand. I want one hand up against her face, so I stick that in place at the shoulder and also at her chest. Then I want the other arm to be stretched out, holding onto her mop. I add the straps onto her dress and then the little crisscross for the corset at the top. For her hair, I've dyed some fondant in a cream colour, and I'm just going to roll out one cord at a time and twist it before sticking it to her head for her curls. Then I just keep adding them until I feel like there's plenty. I really wasn't sure how I was going to do Sarah's sleeves, because if you look at photos of her dress, it's just purple string all the way down. So what I did was use a couple of dusts to make the right shade of purple, and then I make this into a paint by adding some clear food grade alcohol, and I paint that all over her arms. I've got to leave that to dry for a bit. So while I do, I'm going to work on the bodice of her dress. So I add some tiny dots of colour to her bodice, because if you look, she has teeny tiny flowers. I also add tiny dots of white to the centre of each of those flowers. And then back to the arms, I take the paint that I have and darken it out with more purple. And then I can take a thin paintbrush and just add the rope effect all the way down. I take some more of my rainbow dust and I just shade wherever I feel like it needs that bit more depth. It just gives the whole cake a better look overall. And then finally, Sarah has a pattern that goes along the red part of her dress, which I just add with some red food gel and again, clear food grade alcohol. And there she is. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and if you haven't already, go ahead and check out the other Hocus Pocus videos on this channel and make sure you subscribe because there are more to come. And I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Bye.